Hello, and welcome to a CIS 115 video web lecture. For best viewing, you're going to want to set the resolution of the YouTube video from 360p to 720p. Also, you may want to watch it in full screen. This button here will allow you to play the video in full screen. Down in the left hand corner is the play and pause buttons. If at any time you want to leave full screen, you can hit exit or escape on your keyboard. Taking it back to full screen, you can click the full screen button. By doing this process, you can follow along with us as we give you the video lecture. This video web lecture is going to cover making an Android application using App Inventor. Notice the URL appinventor.googlelabs.com/about. When you get to the About page, you want to come to the My Projects link over on the top right hand corner. Give it a click, and if you haven't already signed in, you'll get the sign in page. CIS 115 instructor is already signed in. As of right now, I have no projects created in App Inventor, so I'm going to create new. Now, the app that I'm going to make today is going to ask the user how fast you are traveling in miles per hour, and then how many minutes you want to travel at that speed, and it will tell you how many miles you'll travel in how many minutes. So I'm going to call this app Speed Calculator. Now, when I create a new project, it's going to take me directly to the component viewer such that I can add my components to my screen. We'll do this part first, and then we will open the blocks editor so that we can actually add code to this project. Now, before I start adding a whole bunch of the components to the screen, I want to put everything in some form of screen alignment. This will help organize the different aspects of my project. For the first thing, I'm going to pick a vertical arrangement. I just dragged and dropped the vertical arrangement onto my screen. Over here in the components, you can see that now my screen 1 has a vertical arrangement. A couple things I want to do for the width. I want to do fill parent for the width. That way it will span all the way across the screen. Next step, one of the first arrangements that I'm going to put inside of my vertical arrangement is a table arrangement. As I drag and drop, you notice where that little blue line is? The blue line needs to be inside the vertical arrangement. So I'm going to drop my table arrangement inside here. This will allow me to do columns and rows. Now, I want 2 columns such that I can have a label and a text box, and I'm going to end up having 3 rows. 2 of those rows are going to allow me to enter in the miles per hour and then the number of minutes I'm going to travel at that speed, and then the last row will have the resulting calculation for me. Again, with my width, I'm going to go ahead and make the width fill the parent so that it spreads the entire screen. For height, you can leave that to be automatic such that it doesn't need to go all the way down the screen. By automatic, it means it will fit the size of the components that we have inside of it. So next step, I'm going to come back to my basic part of my palette. Here's where I have things like buttons, checkboxes, labels, and text boxes. First thing I'm going to put are 3 labels on my screen. As I move the label, as I drag it over and move it over the different parts of the the table arrangement, you'll see that I can put it in the different spots. My labels are all going to go on the left. So the left column, text for label 1, label 2, label 3, and then I'm going to put a text box in the right column. Last, I'm going to drag a button, and I'm going to put that button in the vertical arrangement area, but outside the table arrangement. So now I've got my labels and the text boxes set up. Next thing I need to do is start formatting each one of these labels and the text boxes, and then finally the button. First thing though, label 1 over here in the table arrangement, that's not a very good descriptive name. So I'm going to make sure I click label 1 here, click rename, get rid of the 1, and I'll call this MPH label for miles per hour. Label 2, rename, get rid of the 2, and I'll call this minutes label. Label 3, click rename, get rid of the 3, and I'll call this distance label. Text box 1, I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to rename this miles per hour, so MPH text box. Text box 2, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to rename this minutes text box. Text box 3, I'm going to rename this to be distance text box. Finally, button, rename, and I'll call this calculate button. Now, by renaming all of my components here in the components viewer, this will allow me, when I go to the blocks editor, to easily be able to decipher which component is what. If they had the names label 1, label 2, label 3, when we got to the blocks editor and we couldn't see which ones they related to, we'd have to switch back and forth. So having good descriptive names is very important. Next, I'm going to click on the MPH label, which is our top label. Over here in the properties area, this is where we can change the properties for the label. First thing that needs to be changed is the text. Enter miles per hour. Descriptive label, so the user knows what to enter in there. You can do some neat things. Change the font size. Let's change this to be 18. So you can see that the MPH got a little bit bigger there. We can change the background color if we wanted to. Maybe make it yellow. Text alignment, I'm going to leave that to be left, but if we made it right, it would align with the text box over here. And I'm going to leave the text color to be black. Visible, invisible makes it such that it will be seen. And width automatic, height automatic, I'm going to leave those as they are. Next, I'm going to go to my minutes label. I'm going to make the same changes. Let's make this yellow. Let's make this font size 18. And of course, I need to change the text for the label. Enter minutes. It's going to be the number of minutes that you are planning to travel at that speed. Leave everything else the same. Distance distance label. I'm going to change this background color to yellow. Size 18. Distance traveled. You'll notice distance traveled was a longer label, excuse me, and therefore it made all the other labels the same size. That's okay. App Inventor is going to do automatic adjusting for the screen size, for the screen components for you. Next, miles per hour text box. Now, miles per hour is definitely, we can change some things in here. A couple things that you want to do. This hint for text box 1, let's delete that. We don't need to see a hint. Next, miles per hour should be numbers only. So I'm going to click numbers only. We'll keep our text color black. In this case, though, I will do my text alignment, and I'm going to make that right. That means the text numbers will come up over here as opposed to over here. I'm going to make the same changes to minutes text box. Delete hint for text box 2. Numbers only. text alignment right. For my distance traveled, this one's going to be a little different. Well, same as that. I'm going to remove the hint. I am going to make my text alignment right, and I will make it numbers only. But the difference is this enabled button right here. If I uncheck enabled, that means the text box will still be there. You'll still be able to see the text in there. You just as a user will not be able to enter text into it. That's different from making it visible with the visible checkbox. When the visible checkbox is unchecked, you don't see the text box at all. Click it again, the text box shows back up. Lastly, I want to edit my calculate button. So I'm going to click on this. Definitely going to change the text. I'll say calculate distance. I'm not going to put an image on it. Center alignment, no. I'll make this button though fill the whole parent such that it goes the entire distance across. And let's make the font size match the font size of the labels. You can change the colors of these. Make it red. Let's make it green. And I'm going to make the font bold. And that does it for all of the graphical components of our app. It's going to allow the user to enter in the miles per hour and also enter in the minutes that are going to be traveled at that miles per hour. When we click the calculate distance button, it will then calculate the distance traveled.